Few things get people going in the world of US soccer like a discussion on promotion relegation. And with the recent news of fan uprisings in Europe bringing an end to the short-lived European Super League, the discussion has once again been ignited. Can MLS, a league that was founded as single-entity closed system, ever transfer to the pro-rel model like the leagues in Europe? Today we are going to look at the business, logistic, and infrastructure obstacles standing in the way of an MLS promotion relegation model on this edition of the Yank Report. What's up? My name is Sam. Welcome to the Yank Report, the show where we talk about the U.S. national team, U.S. soccer in the United States, all of that good stuff. And of course, this is the granddaddy of all the U.S. soccer conversations in pro-rel. So if you're into this sort of thing, please hit the subscribe button so we can see you again. And if you're enjoying this video so far and you feel like you're going to enjoy it in the future, hit that like button. It's probably the coolest thing you can do in the next 5 seconds. So if MLS were ever to transfer to a promotion relegation league, the first and most significant hurdle that would have to be overcome is the structure of the league itself. See, in Europe, clubs are independently owned and largely independently operated. Think about them like restaurants in a food court. In a food court, the restaurants are required to pay rent to the food court, but after that, the food court has little say in how the individual restaurants are run, and they have no right to the profits that the restaurants make within the food court. Like a food court, European leagues operate merely as third-party governing bodies, with no stake in the individual clubs. By contrast, MLS is a single-entity league. Team owners are not technically team owners, they are shareholders who serve as team operators. Think about it like buying a McDonald's franchise. You can't just buy any building and put it anywhere and call it a McDonald's. There are many corporate rules and regulations that must be followed. Like a corporate franchise partner, the league office is not just a third-party governing body, but also an owner with a major say in how the club is allowed to operate. For these reasons, in order for MLS to switch to a pro-rel model, teams in the lower divisions in the United States would have to buy in to the franchise system, which would mean a significant investment to the league office in the neighborhood of $300 million. At least that's what the figure is right now. There's no telling what that number could be in a few years' time. But it's not quite that simple. Just like buying a McDonald's franchise, MLS doesn't grant everyone with the money access to the franchise. There are many considerations that must be met in order to make sure that the franchise is given the best chance to succeed and works well within the larger context of the league, which brings us to our next major hurdle: logistics. Geographically speaking, the United States is an enormous country. Ask any veteran of European football about the most difficult part of playing in MLS, and they'll most always say it's the grueling travel schedule. While in Europe, teams are generally able to travel by bus to every away game, in America, this is simply not possible. To give some context, one of the longest travel days for the EPL is Brighton to Newcastle, roughly 6 hours in a bus across the entire country of England. In the United States, LAFC opened up their regular season with a game against Inter Miami. LA to Miami is roughly a 5-hour plane ride. Because of the sheer physical size and the financial burden of travel within the United States, almost all the leagues in this country are broken up into divisions and conferences to ensure that the majority of the games are played within reasonable travel distances. In order to ensure that these travel distances are maintained, American franchises are spaced out as logistically efficient as possible. Disrupting this spacing could result in competitive disadvantage for teams without nearby neighbors. For instance, assume that MLS adopts a pro-rel model within 5 years. And within those 5 years, Atlanta United, Orlando City, and all 3 Texas teams are relegated, and in their place, 5 West Coast teams are promoted. Suddenly, the travel burden is lessened on the West Coast teams, whereas with Inter Miami, they have to face significant travel time for every road game, and the entire East-West balance of the conferences is thrown off. For those reasons, it's likely that any pro-rel system in MLS would require the pro-rel to occur regionally rather than league-wide. Now, that's assuming that all lower division teams would be able to handle the financial burden of the MLS travel schedule, which is no easy task. But assuming all lower division sides are able and willing to pay the franchise fee and a regional relegation system is established, allowing for reasonable interleague travel, there is still another significant hurdle to overcome, and that is infrastructure. See, while the majority of European clubs were established over 100 years ago and have established fan bases, stadiums, league offices, practice facilities, soccer clubs in the United States are relatively new ventures. When a new MLS club enters the league, stadiums, team offices, practice fields, academy systems all must be built and in place before the team can take the field. This requires an enormous amount of financial capital to begin construction, and although league owners may be wealthy individuals, large-scale projects like these will always require securing loans from financial institutions. In the past, the uncertain future of MLS has made securing loans difficult, but these days, the strength of the league has helped reduce some of that risk for investors. However, if Pro-Rel is introduced, the risk profile for these loans is changed dramatically. We don't know for sure if an Inter Miami or an Austin SC would be able to obtain the financing to build their stadiums and offices if there was a chance they could be relegated. Assuming that lower division teams are willing to meet the MLS entry fees, assuming some regional pro-rel system is established, and assuming MLS clubs are willing to waive their financial security, is having pro-rel right now worth what we will be giving up? I mean, don't get me wrong, it would be absolutely amazing for MLS to introduce the drama and entertainment that only Pro-Rel could provide. It would be absolutely incredible if we had a strong enough lower division that MLS clubs could survive the drop without risking financial ruin. But is it worth risking the current investment into stadiums and academy systems that we are seeing across the league right now? Ultimately, I can't answer that question for you. It's for each individual fan to decide. And the purpose of this video is not to make a case for or against Pro-Rel. My goal is only to provide some context to this discussion, because it's not as if MLS can just flip a switch and suddenly introduce Pro-Rel. There are an enormous amount of legal, logistical, and financial obstacles that are standing in the way. Is it possible? Yes, it is absolutely possible, but it's also possible for Bruce Arena to become the next coach of Real Madrid. It is possible, it's just highly, highly unlikely. And look, soccer is growing rapidly in this country, and maybe there will come a time in the future where America's soccer infrastructure has matured to the point where Pro-Rel can no longer be denied. Maybe a new league comes along with a Pro-Rel foundation that eventually overtakes MLS in popularity. We don't know what the future holds. All we know for sure is that at this moment in time, Pro-Rel and MLS is not going to happen anytime soon. Guys, that's all I have on this. I know that there's going to be a lot of discussion in the comment section. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video and maybe you learned something. If you learned something, please hit that like button. And as always, if you guys speak Spanish, please leave a comment in Spanish so I can practicar mi español. I love it when you guys comment in Spanish. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know this is a crazy discussion and there are a ton of opinions out there, so I'm excited to get into it in the comment section. Thank you guys for watching. My name is Sam and this is the Yank Report.